In November of 2023, the Swell Pod took a 10-day journey across 5 states, traveling 3,580 miles with one challenge in mind.
And that challenge was to interview 100 pleasantly rebellious humans to uncover deep truths about what it takes to create something that has never existed before, challenge the status quo, maybe even change the world.
This is the Kiln.Roadtrip, created and produced by the Swell Pod.
In partnership with Kiln, Moterra Camper Vans, and sponsored by Taurus.
I'm Spencer McKeown.
And I'm Josh Taylor, and together we're the co-hosts of the Swell Pod and your guides on the Kiln Road Trip. Follow along on the journey.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, follow the Swell Pod on social media, and subscribe to your YouTube channel at, you guessed it, the Swell Pod.
This is interview 69 of the Kiln Road Trip, and today we're at Kiln Meridian in Idaho talking with Denisse Leon. Denisse is a product designer, storyteller, travel photographer, and straight up all-around creative genius. Spencer and I have worked with Denisse for many years on many different projects, and she's always been known to deliver absolute magic that engages the minds and wins the hearts of audiences with her creative work. In fact, Denisse joined us on this journey, and documenting and sharing 100 interviews with 100 pleasantly rebellious people just would not have been possible without her. So Denisse, we greatly thank you for joining us on the journey and also being one of the 100. Thank you all for tuning into today's episode. We hope you enjoy. All right. Well, this is another episode of the Kiln Road Trip. We got Spencer and myself, and we are lucky enough to be joined today by Denisse Leon, who is one of the 3 musketeers who joined us on this road trip. And obviously it could not have been done without her. So Denisse, do you want to just kind of kick things off for us and just introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you're passionate about?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. And it's so good to see all of you again, your faces. My name is Denisse Leon, and I'm a product designer. But I also do a lot of photography, video, and kind of try to dabble a little bit of everything in between. So I'm here in Arizona. Pretty hot over here right now.
Yeah, and we should also just set some context that, we originally did an interview with you on the road trip in Meridian, Idaho. I think you were number 69, and the Meridian episodes were notorious for the fact that one of the cameras we don't know where that footage went, which I'm honestly surprised it didn't happen more than it did. Just considering how much footage we had and the fact that we're offloading footage in between drives to different locations. It was chaotic, and it was 12.
That's what I was going to say. The turnaround that we had to do this was because we had a limited amount of cards, and we were, and those were on 4K, right? Cards.
Yep.
So we had to download all that data really fast overnight, turn it around.
Who was responsible for that?
Maybe it was my fault. Maybe that's why somehow the video didn't show up,
I blame the fact that the back of the van was so messy.
Oh my goodness, that was another thing. Yeah.
Although
I gotta say, it became like my big loft, because you guys pretty much just were driving and I kind of took over the back, but we were going in and out, throwing things, as they come. We just had to move really fast.
Yeah. So obviously, it was 3 people who went on this road trip, and Denisse, just take me back to the moment that we came to you and ultimately offered up this idea and this concept of you coming on this road trip. What were your thoughts? Tell me what was kind of going through your mind. Was there any indecision, or were you heck yeah, let's do that? Tell me about that.
I remember you guys talking about a road trip months before even you guys talked to me about it, and it's maybe there's this road trip, and it sounded cool. I was like, okay, and then but I didn't get enough details, of course, and I was like, okay, sounds good. And then I remember, I think it's hey, would you actually consider joining us? It's we could use a third person to do a lot of the social media aspect in terms of behind the scenes and things like that. And I just remember, I was kind of not surprised. I was flattered that you guys invited me, but I was kind of like, I'm not surprised that I think I've said, yeah, sounds interesting. Sure. Like I didn't ask any more questions, I think, because I was just like, sure, it sounds interesting. Let's go for it. I remember telling my friends about it, and my friends are more of the planner type. And they were like, wait, do you even know exactly everything that entails? Like, where are you gonna stay? What hotel? Like, like they asked me tons of questions of the details, and I was like, I have no idea. But I said, yes, it sounds like an adventure. Let's do it. And I just remember, I think leading up to it, I think then I started freaking out. I was like, wait a second, they may be right. I should probably ask these questions because I'm going, I mean, I worked with you guys for the last, what, 5 years or so, but we've never really done anything like this. And I realized, like, wait a second, I just committed to something. Do I really know these guys really well for me to just go on a road trip for a whole entire week? So it kind of started making me wonder. I was like, oh my gosh, like, no, like we've never done anything like that. So I remember like, so where are we staying? And Spencer's like, oh, it's gonna be fine. We'll like we don't really have a place to like
We
stay,
have
but
a
it's gonna be
van. I'm
fine.
sure I said
We
we
have
have
a
a
van. Yeah,
van.
we have a van. It's like it's gonna be fine. I was like, okay, I guess again, just keep going with the flow, right?
You
And
trusted us. That's what it sounds like.
talk about trust. But on the other hand, it was like a lot like, oh, let's just go along for the ride. Let's see what happens. And it happened. There was not that we had a ban. That's you were right, Spencer. We had a ban.
I can understand the trust component though, like because there's such a history, I think, between the three of us, like doing, insane creative projects, really cool creative projects. And a lot of that is in big part, I think, due to Spencer. Like he's able to kind of push these things that not a lot of people, I think, can imagine ever actually happening. He pushes those into existence. It's pretty
Yeah.
incredible. And yeah, I mean, from all the various different projects, this was just another one of those insane creative projects that I think were like one way or another will produce something awesome. So but yeah,
It's one of those things that you
Well,
just
yeah.
have to trust the process almost.
yeah.
Just trust the
Oh,
process.
trust the process.
Mm.
What process? I don't think we had a process, but I mean, I think we trusted each other. And I think when it's it was kind of you to say that, when it's the right idea, and no matter where that idea comes from, whether it's one of us, or it's a combination of ideas that make, the right idea come forward, then yeah, there's no stopping all of us, I'm sure. But I feel strongly about that. If I don't feel strongly about it, then it's not going to happen. Probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I th
So yeah, go ahead.
I think as creative though, part of trusting the process, it was more than that. It was like I think we were all doing different aspects in the road trip.
Hmm.
And we truly had to trust that the other person had it taken care of. Like you guys had a lot of trust in me that I was gonna download all the footage on time.
Yeah.
Obviously, some of them
All.
got lost still on top of that. But that on its own is like you just had to trust, and we had no time to look back a lot of times and reflect. We were trying to. I remember it was one of the nights like, okay, that was more of the beginning. Okay, what can we do better for the next one? And we're trying to be like, it's like the good kids, like
Mini
how can we improve it?
retrospectives.
The retrospectives.
We were doing it. We had to, like, we just had to iterate. But I think
But
it's,
it was
yeah,
on the
go on.
goal.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, physically as well, right? And there was no stopping, right? Barely any sleep, sometimes no sleep. So I think that was, but I think we wouldn't have pulled it off, or we would have fallen out if we didn't know each other well enough. And we've done create really ambitious things before, multiple times, and probably tested each other. And we kind of knew what we were getting into, right? We knew that there might be last minute ideas or whatever, right? We knew all that from the past, which is really helpful.
But I don't think we knew. I think the other element to this project was that we can handle the creative, we can handle the last minute, but I don't think we fully took into account how tired we were gonna be, and just normal human behavior. The more tired you get, the more we start getting cranky, and there were some moments where we were like, okay, what's going on? But I think that the beauty of that is we managed to stay through the moment and work through we had some rough patches, and be able to, I think we were in a situation where we had enough trust to work through that. And I think to me that was so powerful.
Mm.
Well, hang on. What was your worst patch?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Was it when you were in the hotel?
Oh, now you're calling us out. Well, calling me out. There were some moments. I was honestly, I think towards the end, I was really tired, and I just remember I had also halfway through the trip received some personal news that definitely made it challenging to kind of stay in the moment. But I also remember there were a lot of like sweet moments, like halfway we were driving, in the middle of the night, and we able to kind of just be so vulnerable with each other. And I don't know, it's like that's the kind of it makes me think it's like that's the kind of community you want to have, that even when you're going through something rough, you're able to have those unique moments to kind of help you get through.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the best moment, would you say?
I think it was a series of moments, but I have so many favorite ones. I thought it was funny when Josh decided to camp out inside of one of the offices. Basically, he made his entire own basically hotel room by himself, while Spencer and I had to stay in the bed. Sorry to call you out, Josh, but I thought it was kind of like one of those funny moments that, at the beginning I was all on board. I was like, yeah, it's a road trip. Now I had to confess towards the end I was like, I need a hotel. So I totally was like, I understand Josh now where he's coming from. I need my space. But I think it was like that moment of like, just like, again, just let's see, let's go and see what happens. And I think you made the best out of that moment. But I think the other part is it was just meeting people. And it was so interesting to see how I was actually talking about this the other day with somebody. It's like, we went from one state to another state to another state, and each location, you were able to kind of see their own culture for who they were. So being a naturalized citizen, I take this whole idea of America very serious, actually. Like this, like, what does it mean to be an American? And the road trip on its own kind of allowed me to see, it was like, yes, you have sort of this American perspective, is beyond what you see on MTV shows, right? Being a foreigner. But then once you travel through each town, you see the richness of their culture. So I thought that was actually super cool to see that.
Yeah, didn't you nearly get like recruited by someone?
Yeah, I think I was
mean,
making plans to leave to Idaho, right?
I don't know if that was like, the tiredness or what, or whether it was the culture of Kiln or the people that were there. We were high energy and a lot of fun and very collaborative. And like, yeah, it was like within a few hours, that was it. You were moving to Meridian.
Yeah.
Actually, that night was difficult, wasn't it? Because we stayed way too late in Meridian, or wherever we were at that point, right?
Oh, was that the dinner? So we went to dinner
Yeah.
and then left after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is like that's
yeah.
the night when, so that was when the footage was lost too. So maybe we stayed too late, but also, I think that there was a moment between that drive from Meridian to Portland where I don't know, it just yeah, things weren't super great, I would say, but
I do think the culture piece is really important. It was fun to just go from state to state, notice the differences, but the patterns that were there across different locations within the Kiln community, and maybe some patterns that weren't there. And I don't know, it was just fun, fast paced, and all about people, wasn't it, in community. And I'll come back to, we have probably, I don't know, I'm a bit lost whether we've already covered some of this before, but have we covered how we met? And the fact is we came together as a group, for, in some interesting ways, and then did great work together. And then I've thought about it a lot, the fact that you can really intentionally design anything. So we no longer work together. Some of us don't work for the same company anymore. And I don't, but we can still intentionally design things, right? Because either we need each other for a project or we just want to have some fun, right? And learning together. And we can really do that in the future. We can say, hey, next year or even many years time, right? Every 5 years you do this, something different, something that we can all unify on. But anyhow,
just to, if I can, just to even add on to your point, like one of the things that's been so interesting, I would say, not working as closely together and also having some space post this road trip, because we're now 7 months after this road trip, basically, or 6 months, something like that. But Denisse and I have talked about this, but I think it's true for all three of us that there is that trust, and having gone through the fires so many times before, that it often just sometimes feels like, whether or not we're jumping in to help each other with a different project that we're each working on or something like that, that we just speak the same language. We know what to expect from each other. And we know that, if one of us, has like a week or something to jump in and help the other person, that, we're all like really motivated to help each other out and also do the kind of quality of work that we've always been known to do. And we can do it insanely fast, which is, I think, really, really cool. So
yeah, that's a great point.
I think we really like, well, I think just to kind of follow on Josh's point, is like we appreciate each other's skills for what they are, and almost truly like embrace them. But we also know we have weaknesses, and so it's in those weaknesses where it's like, oh, okay, I know we're gonna jump in because maybe I can help that person to make things faster or whatever. And I think that we created sort of this synergy, this beautiful symphony in a way of like, I can see it as like symphony of notes, right? Like, while one of us was playing a role in a certain area, we could also anticipate and see some gaps and like, I'm gonna jump in over here. Without necessarily communicating oftentimes. Like it just happened.
Yeah, that's a great point. I was going to say, if we had longer, I know we're already kind of nearly up for time. But yeah, what surprised you on the trip from, well, it could be any surprises, right? What you didn't expect to learn or to see or to experience, or even surprise, like strengths you didn't know each other had, or weaknesses that you didn't know had. Hey, did I snore, for example? No. Anyway.
That's a good question.
Obviously not.
Because I did. No, I think because my friends were questioning, like, do you ask enough questions? Do you even know what you're getting into? I had a little bit of a preconceived like notion about like a little bit of like, I really don't know what I'm getting into. But I think what surprised me was that despite of all, like, we had some of those rough patches and we also had some really good times. I felt like sometimes when you do trips like this, I feel like I've had it before. Like you just like, okay, I'm not gonna travel with those people ever again, or it's like, oh, I'm gonna, like you'll go like, yes, I'm gonna do it again. So it's like very black and white. I think with this trip it was kind of surprising to see how, I think it confirmed how good we work with each other. And despite of the rough moments that, and like sometimes like those, it was because of the late nights, and just all the driving, things like that. It was very inspiring. Like I was having a hard time leaving at the end of the trip, to be honest. It was really hard. It was like, oh no, I felt like we just, like a movie. We had such a great climax, and then at the end, I was like, okay, it's time to go home. And I was kind of surprised that I felt that way. But probably because I truly had such a great time.
All right. What about you? So again, months after the fact of the trip happening, biggest lesson that you've learned or biggest thing that you've taken away from the experience?
Okay, it's gonna sound cliche, but I think the biggest lesson, and again, going back to how inspiring this trip was, is like, it totally takes me back to reminds me that it truly starts with an idea, if you think about it, to start something. Like you guys had an idea to go on a road trip, and I know there's more behind that, but it made me think that, sometimes not everybody gets to experience things like that, like this, that just like, hey, grab a couple of friends, especially later in whatever stage of life they're on, right? You start having kids or, responsibilities. And not everybody would decide to just sure, I'm going to take a whole week away from my family and do something like this. Uh, but so it was very unique, right? Moment in time that I don't think I'll ever take for granted. And at the same time, it was inspiring to see that this idea is like you started the match of something, and I was like, and the fire began and it happened. And so be able to see that things like that can happen. It's possible. It's not like just in the movies or like somebody who doesn't maybe have as many responsibilities. It can be possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think that's really great and lends itself really well into the final question. But before I get to that, I just want to see, Spencer, do you have any other questions that you want to ask?
I don't think so.
Okay. So we'll jump into the final question, but I do just want to provide a bit of a teaser because of the fact that so Denisse had to leave basically a few hours early, essentially, right? And I don't think Spencer
She
has
walked
seen this.
out.
Yeah.
That was the low moment. She's like, I'm going.
Yeah. No, I can't remember why you had to leave early, but I will say that there were two things that are really interesting and that I'm sure will pop up in not these episodes, but in the documentary and potentially also in the coffee table book that we're producing. But one, so when you left early, you had to take your Uber ride to the airport, right? And you interviewed the Uber driver. You filmed it, interviewed the Uber driver, you got a picture with him, and you sent us all that. So I'm sure that that's going to find its way into something at some point, which, I mean, that was amazing. The second thing is, you had also stepped away before you left and you recorded just a talking head to the camera, like a closing kind of message, like a final message, which I don't think Spencer has seen that yet, but it was amazing. And I think it perfectly sums up the experience. And I'm excited for anybody who's followed along on this journey to be able to hear that message. So there was some emotion, some tears. And I think it like I said, it
I
perfectly
did
sums up
get
the trip.
challenged halfway through the trip about crying, remember? Because I think we all had our own unique moments, and and so there you go, Spencer. That's a teaser for you to listen on later on.
Well, it's an emotional ride. As you were describing that, Josh. Vibrant moments come back really clearly. Like, well, we know exactly when Denisse left. We were eating pizza, right?
Yeah.
That was a great bar and great pizza. It was as if it was yesterday. And actually, what we did is packed a year's worth of conversations. And I know they were short and that you couldn't describe them as really in depth, right? With 100 people, but you really met more people than you would normally ask questions, more questions they would normally ask, in a year, in 10 days. And same goes for all the different places we were, right? Watching the film or watching that comedy series that night in Colorado.
Yeah, Boulder.
Colorado, like Boulder. Like there were so many moments. It was like, hang on, were we really there? Yeah, we were. It was
It feels so real, actually.
Just packed so many things in, yeah. So it's cool.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm going to get to that last question, but even there was a moment too with you, Spencer, where we were in the car, in the van. I can't remember where we were in the part of the trip, but I remember we were listening to your daughter's song,
in California.
Yeah.
We were in California.
And
we were on our way to eat.
Yeah, there is some footage in there, as well, some B-roll of specifically on you listening to your daughter's song. And that's also a really powerful moment. It was really interesting, like watching that back as I kind of looked through all the footage, like,
about that bit.
Yeah, there's just moments that I feel like, I don't know, they just stand out to me. And there were like, that is one of those interesting moments that just continues to stand out to me. So I don't know.
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure I wasn't surprised that I probably played the song but yeah.
Well, it was
just
a good
lots
song.
of late nights, wasn't there? While you drove 99% of the time. Because Josh does not appreciate my driving. He's learned over the many road trips we've done.
Well, I also remember along the driving, though. I will cut you out because I think we were in California and somebody, what was the word that he was using that he had, like, he made it to sleep in the van every single night. And because there was one word that he was using that you were using the entire time. And then I think halfway through he was driving. I happened to we have a photo of that actually, where he passed out and we're like taking a photo of him sleeping because you couldn't, like, I think that was towards the end on our way to California. Do you remember that moment?
I think so.
And we were trying to put a crown on top of you, but I think you kept moving.
Really? But now I'm remembering. Now
Yeah.
I'm remembering all the other horrendous, like sleeping in California, where I said I am gonna sleep in the van, but then the stupid workmen were rebuilding the road from like 3 a.m. in the morning. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyway, I still am proud that I didn't sleep in a hotel.
Yeah, you did good. You did good.
Actually, Maisie's about to leave on a mission.
I saw that. She's like, what, a couple days away, right?
She's doing like the training online and this like home MTC, but yeah, she's going to be taking a guitar and songwriting in Birmingham, Alabama.
That's awesome.
Nice.
As a missionary. Yeah.
It's very cool. Well, yeah, I think this was a great discussion. I'm sort of glad. So like, I still have the audio from that original interview that we did with you, Denisse. So I don't think that's lost, and it will probably surface at some point, but I actually really appreciated this post-mortem look back, and getting your thoughts on your favorite moments, all that stuff. So I thought that was cool, but, yeah. So the last question that we ask obviously is, and it was interesting because, your biggest learning or takeaway was this idea, and the fire and everything like that. And it leads really well into this last question, which is, what does it take to take an idea and create something that never existed before? Create a movement, challenge the status quo. I'll let you answer.
Yeah.
Before we get into the rest of the episode, we want to thank the partners and sponsors who made the Kiln Road Trip possible. The Kiln Road Trip is brought to you by Kiln. Kiln is a boutique co-working and flex office community with 13 locations in 6 states across the West, dedicated to providing innovative workspaces that empower your team to thrive. Whether you're a solo visionary or an enterprise-level team of up to 100, Kiln transcends being merely a place to work. It's a hub for learning and connecting with like-minded professionals that will make you and your team love where you work.
And if you haven't stepped foot inside a kiln yet, you really need to. On this road trip, we visited every single location, and trust us when we say, once you see these beautifully designed spaces, meet the talented team, and connect with fellow members, you won't want to work anywhere else.
Locations include Utah, Colorado, Idaho, Oregon, California, and Arizona. And they're growing too, with multiple locations set to open in 2024.
Yeah, so be sure to check out the kiln locations nearest you by booking a tour at Kiln.com and answer Swell in the question, how did you hear about us? Once you complete the tour, you'll be entered into a competition where you could win a 1-year membership, their club membership at Kiln.
Yep, you heard that. That's Kiln.com, book a tour, and be sure to mention Swell in the question, how did you hear about us?
The Kiln Road Trip is also brought to you by Moterra Campervans, a luxury campervan rental company for iconic road trips. Their top-of-the-line vans are available at 7 locations located near America's best outdoor adventure destinations. They have consistently earned the highest customer ratings in the industry, making Moterra Campervans your gateway to adventure without sacrificing on comfort or service.
That's true, and initially we wanted to take this journey in a 1960s VW bus, but thankfully we found Moterra instead. With 3 van options, we took the Pop Top Classic, which sleeps 4 and is best for those who want to maximize floor space and storage. This was critical for us because it needed to sleep the entire crew, we needed space to edit, and we were traveling with large amounts of equipment, luggage, and other goodies that we picked up along the way.
And this van took us through all 3,580 miles of the trip. Super comfortable and sweet to drive.
And actually, Motera offers fully planned itineraries if you'd rather leave the planning to someone else.
Visit gomotera.com/swell. That's gomotera.com/swell.
This episode is also brought to you by Taurus. Taurus is leading the charge in home energy storage. Taurus makes it easy to achieve energy independence and a greener tomorrow. The Taurus station provides everything you need to generate clean power, efficiently store electricity, and easily manage your energy use.
And installing a Taurus station offers plenty of benefits, including save money on your electricity bill,
also ensure energy security with backup power during outages,
reduce carbon emissions with renewables.
You can also automate EV charging and HVAC systems with 100% renewables,
and enjoy unrivaled system monitoring and support.
If you like the sound of those benefits, get a quote to build your Taurus station in less than 30 seconds. Super easy at taurus.co. That's TORUS.co. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it makes me, every time I think about like that question too, like it really make the road trip on as a whole, like really embodies that. And and what does it take? I think the thing that I saw in each of us, it takes a lot of like just willingness, but also takes a lot of humbleness to like, especially again, when you are dealing with rough situation or, or good situations, it takes a lot of humbleness to just be willing to say, either I need help or, I don't know something, and allow others to come in. You kind of had to take all the pride away. But with that, it's really it's almost like when you have sort of this willingness, this openness, and just kind of like it's almost like this, when kids are like babies, right? They just like look at the world and everything is new, and looking at it from that lens in a way, they're willing to kind of like see things from a different point of view. When you combine all those 3 things, it's almost like you lift up all like the lids of the box, and it really becomes like anything can happen. And I think the road trip, again, it's the perfect example of that. You were willing to sacrifice some time with your family and kind of like, take some time and just maybe not have the same comforts that you would probably have at home, but also you were willing to just talk to other people. Sometimes it's just that, talking to others and see where that leads. I also remember like even the night that we were in Portland and we went to the brewery, and all of a sudden, honestly, I've always wanted to like do some beer designs for labels. And I remember like we went to the breweries, and I was like, the owner was just like so inspiring to hear like what she had done, that it kind of resurfaced some of those like feelings, like, oh my gosh, I want to go back to do that. So yeah, I think oftentimes I would say there's a humility aspect, the humbleness, and just kind of be willing to just jump in and see what happens.
Yeah. It's interesting because your episode's coming out on June 17th. Nikki, the brewery owner, Away Days, is coming out the day after. So that's a nice little segue.
Wasn't
so
that
check it out.
Wasn't that the other time you were very bold? Like, not only were you going to move to Meridian, you were also going to, whether she wanted it or not, you were going to design a new design for her, right?
Well, yeah, I think I was in a ride. Yeah, I was riding the whole, feeling of just, giving it a try. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. This was an enjoyable discussion. Just to open it up for any last thoughts. If not, we'll call it an episode.
I I will say, it really was a privilege and, such an honor to do that with you guys. I feel like, and not just do I consider you friends, but I feel like you guys are truly like, these trailblazers, that are kind of just willing to just dream big. And it's always encouraging to do that. It kind of, makes me feel like, oh yeah, I can do that. So I would say, just keep doing the work you're doing, and it's killer work that what you guys are doing. But yeah, it's truly like, just thank you for having me come along the ride, and I can wait for us to produce the coffee book. So everybody stays tuned, because I think that's gonna be really cool too. I'm very excited about that.
I know, I was going to say, but are you not excited about the 2025 initiative? But I'm not going to ask that question, because you just reminded me that there's a lot of stuff, cool stuff to be done in 2024.
Yeah. Well, I can wait to hear it, I think. Maybe. No, I can wait to
I'm
hear.
making it up. Well, maybe. Who knows?
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Kiln Road Trip. Be sure to follow along on the rest of the journey, and you can do that in two ways. One, subscribe to the podcast, whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or maybe even watching on YouTube, and follow along on all of our social media platforms, whether you're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or TikTok, at the Swell Pod. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.